These are pearls, worth perhaps £10,000 to the jewelers of Paris and New York. They came from oysters grown in the waters off the northwestern coast of Australia near Broome. That's where I am now, in Broome, on the foreshores of Roebuck Bay with the purling luggers behind me. Roebuck Bay, named after William Dampier's ship, Roebuck, the first British naval vessel to visit Australian waters in the 1600s, long before Captain Cook sailed up the east coast and raised his flag there. Here, amid the foreshore camps, the crews are preparing their boats for another season, just as they did when Broome was the pearling capital of the world. In those days, 50-odd years ago, Broome was a busy and cosmopolitan port, and thousands of Asiatics lived on the hill up near Sheba Lane. Kupangas, Malays, Japanese, Chinese, Torres Strait Islanders, and Australian Aborigines. Today, their descendants still live there, but they live in a Broome which year by year grows more depressed, and which now depends largely on a meatworks for its survival. Broome has been one of the most romantic places in the world. A great deal has been written and told about it. It attracted adventurers from almost all countries to reap, if they could, a fortune from the sea. But only a handful of people are alive now who can remember the good old days back before the First World War. One of them is an old pearler, Bert Kennedy, who runs a store here now. And what were some of the old pearlers like? Were they tough characters?
Yes. A lot of them were served their time in the mercantile marine and left there and took on pearling. Made their homes here and reared families here.
In what way were they tough?
Well, like the old sea dogs, you know. They used to live hard. Well, the conditions of pearling in those days were vastly different to what they are today. You had a different kind of lugger and you lived hard.
Where have all those old characters gone now?
Oh, most of them have passed on now.
Where are they?
Oh, they've passed on, I say. Yeah. I don't know what place they've gone to, but...
I've heard that in the old days that they sometimes lost as many as 100 divers in a season with paralysis. Is that true?
No, that's wrong. That's wrong. The biggest number was 33.
Did you find any big pearls?
Oh, I never got... only one or two. The biggest ever I had was worth about £1,000.
What's it feel like to have a really good pearl in your hand?
Well, you feel your luck has arrived at last.
Any crime here in the old days?
Oh, yes. Yes, there were. Back in 1900, the year I came here, there was a pearl dealer named Lieblid murdered for what he was carrying to buy a supposed pearl. The murderers, they met him on the hotel veranda, the Roebuck veranda, and told him they had a pearl, and they had it wrapped up in a end of a handkerchief. It was only a lemonade stopper bottle, bottle stopper. You know, the ones they used to have in those days around. And they made a rendezvous with him to meet him on a laid-up schooner just opposite one of the hotels in the town, opposite the Roebuck there, laid up. And they got him out there and they murdered him out there. I think two of them got hung over it, and a white man. There was a white man in it too.
Was there much gambling here in the old days?
Oh yes, a lot of gambling. The boarding houses used to be run for nothing else, really.
Big money?
Yes, big money. Oh, you'd often hear of a man winning £600 of a night, and you know, a diver or a tender. By the same token, you heard of him probably losing it the next night. There's been cases where a man has hung himself under the jelly down there. I remember that years ago, because he lost his money. He won it, and then he lost it, and then he went and hung himself.
Tell me about the big cyclones here.
Well, I suppose the worst blow the pearling fleet had in my experience was the 1908 blow. I wasn't, the centre was down at Lagrange Bay. We lost 50 luggers and 250 men, off the pearling fleet. But as far as Broome is concerned, the 1910 blow was easily the worst blow that we had here. There were 70 luggers anchored out on the roads, and when the blow was over, there was one at anchor. All the rest had been blown ashore. Some of them up on sand hills, others on rocks.
Bodies?
No, we never saw any bodies. Only 50 men lost. 50 men lost that time.
Do you remember the bombing here in 1942?
Yeah. Oh, yes, I was here at the bombing. In fact, I was in between two bombs that fell. One fell 80 yards one side and one fell about 60 yards the other, but luckily they fell in mud.
What happened to the flying boats that morning?
Ah, well, that was a tragedy, there's no doubt about that. For days, boats had been flying over here from the islands, bringing refugees, air personnel, mostly Yanks, Americans, you know. Some of them had come all the way from the Philippines down to Singapore, across to Java, and then they had to move on here. Well, for some days they'd been coming in and then they'd going off again, taking the passengers down wherever they were going, Fremantle, I take it. At this particular night, there's some flying boats came in, and the men came up to the hotel, and they were that tired they'd just laid down and went to sleep here, there, and everywhere. But they did give instructions to the hotel keeper to have breakfast early, as they wanted to get away as soon as possible in the morning. They'd left all the women and children on the flying boats. All right. Well, it's to the credit of the hotel keeper, he had breakfast ready for them long before 6 o'clock. Well, you've got to tell the facts. At 8 o'clock they were still in the bar drinking. And then they left. And they just got down to the jetty when planes came around the entrance there. I saw it all. And methodically they went down one way, up, and turned around, came down the other way. And they got 19, I think it was. 19 of them, all filled with women and kids. Not a lot.
The widow of one of Broome's most famous characters, an old pearler, still lives here. She comes from a famous pearling family herself, Mrs. McDaniel. How did women dress in the old days?
Well, they all had beautiful frocks, white frocks, everything white, including their stockings, shoes, generally voiles.
Must have been pretty hot for them.
Well, hot, yes, but not as hot as perhaps silks and things we wear now. They were all plenty of natives, you see, and they used to wash and iron and starch them.
What kind of a life was it for a woman?
Well, it was very gay, but you had to work. If you didn't work hard, of course, the natives think, oh, Mrs. lazy. They'd go and sit down too, or if Mrs. went out, the natives would go out too.
Did you have big parties?
Wonderful parties and wonderful balls, sit-down suppers and so on. Danced on our own verandas and bridge parties.
Was there much gambling?
A lot of gambling in the early stages. As a matter of fact, my husband used to gamble, play poker very heavily till 3 o'clock in the morning.
For what kind of stakes?
Well, hundreds of pounds. And there was a beautiful purse brought out, gold-linked purse brought out from Paris by one of the pearlers, set with emeralds. And he went broke. In those days, some of the pearlers used to go to Perth and spend 2 or 3 tons of shell before it was raised, and then they'd come back. And this man went broke, so his gold purse was his wife's gold purse.
A lot of people committed suicide, I think, didn't they?
Oh, no, I can't remember very many. 1 or 2. There were 1 or 2 murders for pearls, but not very many. There was a big one before I came to Broome, down opposite the Roebuck Bay.
Was it a wild place then?
No, it was a very civilised place. Very super civilised. When I first came, and everybody, well, they were very particular about things. But to get back to the gambling, they had what they called the Broome Exchange, and that was a morning effort down the town. It was a long time before I discovered why my husband was late for lunch. And they used to have the show poker 5 or 7 of them, leading pearlers, and half a crown, and then their side bets, you see, and they called it the Broome Exchange.
Did you ever see any really good pearls?
Heaps of them. Heaps of them. I wouldn't say 1 or 2, I'd say 200-300. Beautiful pearls.
What kind of a
As a
feeling?
matter of fact, Terry got a pearl, or we got a pearl last year that was sold. You see, it's different now. The pearl isn't yours. We used to give the divers 10% commission and the shell opener 15%, and the crew all a present. Well, now the diver gets half, the crew gets, or a third, the crew gets half, or a third, and we get the third.
What kind of a feeling did you get when you saw a really lovely pearl?
Well, personally, I was never terribly excited because I was looked on it was the business. You see, I remember once we were playing bridge and a young shell opener, Harry Baker, walked in about 12:30 at night, and Daniel went down and he came back all smiles. And he just rolled this pearl onto the table. And it was beautiful, and we were all 4 women. He picked it up and showed it to me, and I heard afterwards Mrs. McDaniel was so excited she was going to get a new dress out of it. I never thought about it. I never thought about it. I thought, oh, it's in the business.
Mrs. McDaniel, there must have been a lot of heartbreak too in those days.
Yes, very. They used to get sick, the poor little kids, and you couldn't get this, that and the other. And when I had my gallbladder out, we couldn't get any ice, and I was dying. No champagne to stop the old tummy heaving, and this, that and the other. Oh, many difficulties, so many difficulties, that, and it was hard work, but you survive it. I don't think work kills anybody.
It's been a battle, has it?
Battle always, with many good times in between, but it always seems a battle against some sort of odds.
But the traditional methods of fishing for pearl shell are on the way out. Year by year, an ever-dwindling fleet puts to sea. Plastics and synthetics have almost killed the demand for the natural pearl shell. The Japanese, who've always been key figures in the pearling industry because they made the best divers, have established a multi-million-pound industry in cultured pearls, and this industry has now come to Australia. This boat, recently completed here in Broome at a cost of £30,000, is about to sail up the coast to Curie Bay, where the Japanese, with Australian partners, have established an expensive pearling station to take advantage of Australian conditions, which can grow cultured pearls in these waters twice as fast as anywhere else in the world. All the pearls from here go first to Japan, and from there to the markets of the United States and Europe, where they're sold for anything up to 10 times their cost of production here. One of the partners in this enterprise is an old pearler in Broome, Mr. Sam Mayo. How much money have they put into it?
Well, I couldn't really tell you that, it's a bit hard a question, but I can say that they've built boats, for travelling from here up to there and for collecting shell. They've got good buildings up there, all the people are well housed, and they've got good kitchens, refrigerators and everything like that. They're very fortunate in the water. Just above the show there's a big spring, and very nice fresh water runs down to the camp all day. You can have as much as you like of that, which is a great luxury. And then they put in all the necessary equipment, electric lights, freezers, and they've got for the working fluoroscopes and all that kind of thing.
Well, it sounds a pretty big business.
Oh yes, yes. Well, they usually have these days 120, 130,000 pairs of shell there.
But now all the money from this, or a fairly greater part of it, goes back to Japan, doesn't it? To Japanese interests.
No.
Where's it go?
Where's it go? Half. I would say the Japanese, there's 2 companies. One is an Australian company, and the other is a Japanese company.
But it's controlled by the Japanese, isn't it?
No. The working here is controlled by the Australian company.
But who's got the controlling interest?
Nobody. No controlling interest.
Well, who's the major shareholder?
No major shareholders. 2 companies which are equal, and they should split the pearls half and pay the expenses half, but it's rather difficult to split the pearls half. Someone might say you took all the best ones and we got all the worst. So what is done is the pearls are all sold together, and half the proceeds are taken by us, and they take the other half of the proceeds. And half the working expenses are paid by us, and they pay the other half expenses.
Well, now, if the profits are split 50-50, the technical know-how belongs to the Japanese, doesn't it?
Technical know-how, yes. But we provide the spot and do all the work on the spot and run the show.
Is there any chance, do you think, of an Australian cultured pearl industry being established? Any chance of Australians learning how to do this?
I couldn't see why not.
Do you think it would be a good thing if they did?
Well, I would say, it could be, yes, yes.
You'd like to see it restricted to the present operators?
Well, no, I would like to see the present operators or other operators combine and do the sensible thing.
The secret of culturing pearl is the method of introducing an irritant into the oyster to make it produce a pearl, a secret which the Japanese companies and the Japanese government guards jealously. And even at Curie Bay, the secret remains with Japanese operators. This is a source of some frustration to Australian pearlers in Broome, who would like to share in this new industry themselves. One of them is Terry McDaniel, the son of old Mac McDaniel and Mrs. McDaniel, who inherited his father's luggers. He is an ex-bomber pilot and served with Pathfinders during the war. Mr. McDaniel, what's the state of the pearling industry now?
It's in a very, very poor condition, mainly due to the influx of plastics and the unsaleable market value of lower grades of shell.
To what extent has the price of shell per tonne dropped over the last 5 years?
In the vicinity of £300 on sound grades and down to zero on lower grades. There are certain grades of shell which are unsaleable.
Now, it's a very successful cultured pearl station up the coast here at Curie Bay. Would you agree that the Japanese control this?
I would say quite definitely that they have an interest in it. Whether it is controlled by them or by Mr. Gerdo, who is an American, I would not know.
But the control of the marketing of it is done through Japan.
I understand, sir.
What's to stop people like yourself establishing a cultured pearl industry?
Nothing other than the fact that we cannot get technicians, nor can we get sufficient information from either fisheries, CSIRO to go ahead with it. Everything else is quite available for the culturing of pearls.
But is this an atomic secret, culturing pearls?
Apparently, sir.
You feel, though, that if you did get help from CSIRO, scientific help, that you and people like you could establish an Australian cultured pearl industry?
I'm quite certain of it.
What about marketing?
Marketing would easily be made available to us by various of the pearl buyers overseas.
Do you know of any?
Yes, one particularly, a fellow called Bargagine, who is in Paris and for whom I buy natural pearls.
Is he a big buyer?
He's an extremely big buyer, one of the world's largest.
Have you had much help from bodies like the CSIRO?
Only by virtue of literature, and that in a minority.
Have you yourself taken any practical interest in pearl culture?
Well, the practical interest which I have currently taken is to purchase these tools, which I had made in the eastern states at a cost to me of in excess of £100.
And what about leases?
Leases are held in King Sound, and they're ready to be worked at any time.
Are they satisfactory ones, do you think?
Quite satisfactory. In fact, I think they're exceptional.
And what about markets for them?
Markets are easily available or can be made available in Paris, anywhere in Europe.
Which would sidestep Japan?
Yes.
So all you want now is the scientific know-how?
That's what I require.
And you can get that, you think, from CSIRO if they will help?
I don't know whether I can or whether I can't, to be quite honest, but they have helped very little up to date.
So you really think that Australians could make a go of this cultured pearl business?
I'm absolutely certain of it. Quite certain of it.
It seems clear from what we've learnt in Broome that Australian cultured pearls are among the finest in the world and flourish in conditions here. It also seems clear that under the present arrangement, these pearls are bringing back into the country only a fraction of what they're worth. Australian pearlers are confident that with scientific backing and advice, they can establish a new and wholly owned Australian industry here on the northwest coast, and so rejuvenate famous Broome, a town in which the predominant feeling at the moment is expressed by the local taxi driver, Lofty Kapaner.
Oh, I think the arse is going out of Broome now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Broome's been going down ever since I've been in Broome for the last 6 years. Seems to be getting worse every year. And I can't see anything making it to get any better.